You're listening to the Topco Business Unusual podcast. Now, the Business Unusual podcast. Learn from the greatest minds in business today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Topco Business Unusual podcast, where we have discussions with industry leaders who are shaking up the industry and, well, doing business unusual. My name is Sasha de Freitas, Senior Conference Producer at Topco Media. And this month, we've been in conversations with a lot of tech leaders and founders in Africa who are seeing issues and challenges in the landscape and using that to build business models that are actually solving these challenges and solving these issues. And today's podcast guest is no exception. Startup founder, government advisor, and author. She's known as SA's youngest startup tech wunderkind, having co-founded prop tech business DigsConnect in 2018 in response to the student housing crisis in 2016 during the protests. Fast forward, DigsConnect currently has presence in more than 400 cities worldwide, listing more than 1.3 million beds. Now recently having released her book, Upstart, she is outlining her journey of the success story and inspiring future tech entrepreneurs. Without further ado, Alexandria Procter, welcome. I'm so happy to have you on this podcast today.
Thank you so much. I feel like, you know, in WWE, where they have like the guy announcing the fight is coming out, and it's like, ladies and gentlemen, and they do this big like roundup. That's how I felt, literally. I'm like, kind of come out, just like to the crowd roaring in like my boxing gown, just like
the power that you need. This is literally everything.
Now. I feel like I just want to set everyone's expectations. Please lower your expectations, like drastically after hearing that. Like just a general like FYI to anyone watching this.
That you can't take away. Literally everything that I said is what is you right now. And that is the craziest part. And we have a bit of a backstory with you. We have hosted you on our Standard Bank Top Women conference in 2021. But since that point, we've grown a lot. Our audience has grown a lot. You've grown a lot. There's a lot of stuff happening. I've been following you on LinkedIn and everything that you've been doing, but I know that there's a lot of young people and a lot of people that are new to our audience who maybe don't know everything about you in terms of your backstory, who you are. So basically, I want to ask the question, how did you get to this point? This point where you're entering your 30s, you are a successful female tech startup founder, you have literally released a book now, Upstart, you're doing book tours, you're on the cover of SA's Fast Company magazine. You're taking selfies with President Cyril Ramaphosa. Please, can you tell us your backstory and actually how you got here?
I feel like there's just so many backstories behind all of those. Like, while it sounds like it was all kind of premeditated, there's like, when I take the backstory in each of those things, it is so chaotic and it's so like, oh my God, boys, we got to make this happen. Like, let's go, let's hustle. And the way like all it kind of came together in moments of pure chaos. So like, looking back, it looks like so like rah, and it was like the sheer path to like, oh, the president and this thing and that thing, but like the backstory is chaos, you know, how all these things happened. And like even I did an interview with ETV recently, and with Newsnight or News Morning, news show, a very fantastic news show, and it was at 7 a.m. South Africa time, so it's like the morning news, but I was out of the country, I was traveling, so the time zone for me was really early. It was like 4 a.m. And so it was Sunday morning, and I wish I could say it was out of character for me, but unfortunately it's not. I'd forgotten to set an alarm and I completely forgotten about it. And so I remember I was sort of like happily fast asleep. You know, I was having a whale of a time getting my REM. I track my sleep score on my Apple Watch. I'm an absolute obsessee of like the health tech revolution. Probably my REM cycle. Oh, I promise you, having a fabulous time. And then I just hear like distantly, like my phone buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. And I was like, what kind of a schmuck calls at this time of day? I want to ignore that. So I ignored it, buzzing, buzzing, buzzing. I was like, oh. So I look at my watch and I see messages of my publisher saying, where are you? Your interview started 10 minutes ago and it's like live. And I was just like, ugh, you know, when your stomach just drops. It's like I jump out of bed, obviously just been sleeping, so I did not look ready to go like on national news. I had to like scramble to like get my stuff together within like 30 seconds. laptop was on, I was live on the news trying to do this pitch, and this journalist is like going for and asking these questions, and I was just like, absolutely, 100%, let's do it, just riffing, and I was going. And it's most of those stories really is about, which perhaps is like emblematic of like the whole founder journey in a way, is that you kind of are just building the plane while you're flying it. That's what they all say. And really is that you kind of almost never have surety. You never have absolute clarity on where you're going. I mean, you kind of know the vision. You can see, okay, cool, that is where we're going. You're going to go into the wilderness, you're going to put a flag in the ground, and you're going to say, look, that's, and in a way, I think it's even like the CEO's job, and that's the founder's job. Like, that is where we're going. That is like it, it's that flag in that wilderness. How you get there is like, it's that direction.
That's the question that we need to know. That's what we want to understand.
Get there. Yeah, fluff. And so just as a caveat while we get into it, I've got a bit of a cough at the moment, so I'm sorry if I'm going to be coughing up a lung as I go. I'm training to do a triathlon, and I got a flu, and I should have stopped training, but I pushed through it, and so it got worse and worse, and now I sound like I've been chain smoking for 30 years, which I have been also. No, I'm joking.
Are you, please don't tell me you're still busy training. Are you busy training as we speak, even though you're sick?
No, I'm doing a lot easier. Like, I'm not doing like the hardcore, like I try to keep my heart rate beneath 150. So I'll do very slow runs, or I love skateboarding. I know that really counts as exercise, but I'll do that and like chilled stuff. But doing a long monologue, should I go back to your question that you asked?
That's what we want to know. Yes. Not that we don't enjoy learning about how you just literally were skating directly before this interview. I mean, that's also entertaining, but
yeah, it's true actually.
that's what we want to know. How are you skating? And then at the same time, literally shaking hands with Sora Mapoto.
Well, I mean, you have to fit in, it really is a marathon, not a sprint. What everyone says is true. Like I used to, just when I started, I mean, I was a student at UCT, and I built my company while I was a student, and then ended up dropping on my postgrad to go straight into it. And when you start, especially in your 20s, you are like, this is everything. You look at like the greatest entrepreneurs and founders who've done exceptional work. It is everything for them. They get tunnel vision. They're not balanced people. They would like destroy their health and their relationships, and they were able to say great. In your 20s, you feel like everyone kind of wants to be on that same kind of like gravy train. They're like, this is everything, and you go for it, and almost everyone burns themselves out. And they get to a point where they're just like, you got to choose. Is this what you want? And you want to have like one thing and just do that? Or do you want a more well-rounded, healthy life? And I think I'm leaning towards, maybe again, it's, 30, it's an extreme sport. I think I want to lean more towards the balanced, healthy life. And so what I've done is throughout the day, actually, you insert moments of calmness within it all. So this morning I woke up and I was like straight away into the thick of it. There was like a million things lined up. Even us just getting this time to sit and talk has been like difficult to juggle schedules.
Man, and then I had a whole juggling thing. It's crazy.
I had like a little 20-minute gap, and I was like, sick, haven't had a coffee yet. I give myself one coffee a day. That's my rule. I was like even more hyperactive. And I was like, I've got a gap. Instead of walking to the coffee shop, let me just hop on my skateboard and just ride on over. So I kind of cruised down, and it was like right, having like a coffee, a latte on your board, cruising, like after a morning of being in meetings. It was just like, the vibes were so good. I was just like, okay, a few more laps around the block, this is just, I listen to my music, my coffee, wind in my hair.
At its finest.
And it just recharges you a bit, so then I had to like zoot on home again, which is great. I got some good speed, and now it's like back into it, so you insert these moments into your day where it's like bits of joy, and then it's like, now I feel like instead of like doing the whole day 9 o'clock, you just like killed yourself until 5 p.m. and you're just like, oh God, I'm drained. Rather, it's like continually from the moment I wake up right until I feel like I'm always working, in a sense, because I always love creating and I always love creating value. But like, I'm not completely drained by the end of the day, because there is no end of the day. It's like a life, work, integration, creation type thing, because there's always moments of joy, by listening to your energy level. And I wish more employers were more forward thinking about this, because you get the best of your team. If it's like 12 o'clock and you're like, God, I just need to go for like a Pilates class now. I just need to like move my body, or I just need to have a nap, or I just need like whatever. And your outcomes based, not hours based, and you've got a project to deliver, you absolutely have to live the project, but maybe you actually want to work on it at 2 o'clock in the morning because you feel like, that's your moment. So yeah, I think you got to build like a long-term view of doing exceptional work, you know? This idea that you kill yourself throughout the day, you're exhausted at night, weekends, and you're just trying to escape, and then one day you retire, but then you're so like exhausted and over it, and then you're also so much in this work routine that like you don't know what to do with yourself, and you're like, what is it? What? You know, and I think the
Yeah.
benefit of it also is realizing how fast it goes. You have to do it all together. You have to make sure that your relationships are the bedrock of your, you know,
Mm.
of your life, and your health is, and build work for that. Otherwise, what are you doing it for at the end of the day? It's like, if not to like, yeah, be with your community and your friends, and what do you like doing it for? So I think it all actually goes like in tandem. And it makes you a more whole person. So like when I come to my work, if it's with the president, if it's with investors, if it's, you know, from like the most intense level, I'm doing, you know, G20 stuff and working with like some really like big dogs, you know, or if it's just like hang out with my mates, like it, which is more important actually, at every level that you want to bring your full self to that. And that requires filling your cup and filling your battery. And that
Yeah.
means taking out 20 minutes to go skating if that's what you want, or, you know, go for I love a spa treatment, or sleeping. Oh my God, like being unapologetic about your sleep schedule. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
I feel like we've really gotten into how you're actually balancing your life right now and everything that you're doing. And I want the audience to understand, what is it that you're balancing your life from? Like, what are you doing? Like, we haven't even got to that point yet where we're like, okay, why is she with Cyril Ramaphosa? How did she actually found this? I want them to get a little bit of a story and like understand just as much as I do in terms of how impressive the work that you're doing right now and how you actually got to this point. So just take us back a few steps and then like tell us what you're doing right now.
Cool. So, yeah, I guess my life kind of got interesting when I started my company. So before then, I was just, you know, school, travel a lot, like a little bit of backpacking, UCT, and UCT has started involved in student politics. I think the cool thing about, well, there's so many amazing things about being South African. It's like literally the coolest country in the whole world, and we like the best people ever. But
Steppers.
woo! The most exciting part is that we're part of such a young democracy, you know, and there's so much good work that everyone can do. You can do like the smallest thing and have the most biggest, like the largest ripple effects of the community. And so student politics and being involved in like student affairs on campus was kind of, it drew me in. And within that, I got elected onto student government. And I was helping students find accommodation. So there's a massive infrastructural shortage of student housing across South Africa. Only between 5 and 20% of students are housed on campus. And there's like a million reasons for this. Actually, we wrote a report, my company wrote a report on this called The State of Student Housing. I think it's linked, it's definitely on my social, you can find it on DigsConnect LinkedIn. Or like online, I can definitely send a resource if people want to read it. And it kind of gives the backstory to like how we wound up in that situation. I know the World Bank, they read the reports and they based a report on that, which was super cool actually. It felt like really cool, like not of credibility. I remember doing the interviews with them. They're like people in suits, and I was like kind of like this, and I was like, "How's it, Oaks?" Like,
So
and
you.
yeah, so there's like this massive like structural infrastructural issue. And so what I did is I had all these students saying, you know, how do we find a place to stay? And landlords also, because as we know, the private sector in South Africa is incredible. So landlords that had all the stock, you know, people that invest in the economy, they've got a 2-bedroom flat, they've got a one room available in a house, 40 digs, whatever it is. And you also have this new burgeoning scene of purpose-built student housing in South Africa. It's a whole new asset class, which is very developed in like the UK is probably where it started, but across Europe and Australia, it's just taking off in the US now. The US is very much like an on-campus housing market, but there's just so many people there that there's definitely a market there. And it's just like, obviously, it's like ground zero for capitalism. So there's always work to be done there. Um, and so within all this, they also needed, you know, they needed students. And because there's like this massive shortage of student housing, like it's the guys that have these like smaller properties that are so critical to addressing this issue. So with NSFAS, you know, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, they like have such a responsibility to make sure that students are best equipped to graduate. There's a massive dropout rate, you know, only 1 in 3 students will actually ever graduate. And this is like a really big issue when you look at students that come from especially like vulnerable, underprivileged backgrounds. Because it's like
Wow.
it's more critical that they graduate. It's more critical that they kind of break those poverty cycles, that they can then get jobs, because research shows not only they support themselves, they're often supporting their communities as well and family members. So it's kind of like you uplift one person and then like 5 people kind of go with them in a way. And you've seen stories of people who support their siblings then to go to university. So it's so critical. But there's just not enough like around support. Like you can pay someone's like university fees. That's like one part of the equation. Like varsity is tough, especially if you go into like a whole new city or new environment. Like it's just difficult, like emotionally it's difficult, psychologically it's difficult. Like you get homesick. It's like adjusting to this whole new thing. And I mean, like if you add being in like a really crappy housing situation on top of that, that makes it so much worse. Like after a bad day, if you come home somewhere and it's just like a bit gross, you're gonna feel so demoralized. You can't work in that situation. And so yeah, so that's kind of the work we started doing. But I mean, this all kind of came late. I mean, this was 6 years ago. So now I'm talking like the hindsight, like the wisdom of hindsight. At the time, I was just like, I should just build a website. I have a database.
There's
I've
a
got these students.
problem. I'm going to make a
Yeah,
solution. I'm
I've
going to
got
build a
these
website.
landlords. It seemed like obvious, and I'd done a year, I was majoring in physics at the time. So I'd done a year of computer science to like accompany that. So it was really easy to get a website. Like with the online resources available nowadays, you actually don't need to code. You can probably get ChatGPT to like spin up a website for you, or just use like an online website builder. Like you can do it in like a few hours. But back then there was not as many tools, but I could like now get something really simply like on a Python backend, and then very like HTML, CSS front end. Like it wasn't even responsive. It looked like hideous on phones. It like only worked on like some browsers. Like it was pretty rough. But it did the job, it worked, launched it. And that was 2018. And it just like took off. It's kind of those things where it just was like the zeitgeist on campus and it just like filled that niche and just like took off. And so it's
So
pretty
wait,
crazy.
go to that part, the taking off of it. How did it actually build traction?
Well, I think it was just like a word of mouth thing, like I was building it for like myself, my friends, for like everyone in the community. So it wasn't like an outside company coming to like market to students, handing out shitty flyers or like being like, hey, look at that thing. And everyone's like,
If you sign up to our website, you'll get a free chicken wing.
yeah. And everyone's like, I'll sign up for the free stuff and then block you, like it was, it's just like, it just doesn't work. Whereas if it's coming from like your mates or you're going to digs parties with the same people all the time, like it's a closer community and you had to sign up with a UC email address. And so it's even more like, it felt safe. It felt like, you'd like see people you knew on there. So it wasn't like, like Gumtree where it's like, you will get scammed or like there will be something dodgy happening. We've all gotten scammed on that before. Even if it's not with housing, it could be like you want to buy something and it's like, a lemon or something. Like let's say, I know, like you buy a car and it's a lemon, not you buying an actual lemon. You could buy a lemon, I guess, on Gumtree, who knows? But so yeah, so it was kind of just was part of the community, I guess. So that was kind of how it started getting out there. But I think what really perhaps captured everyone's imagination is a few months after I started it, a friend of mine, SRC, a guy called Greg Keel, who's a lot more entrepreneurial than me. So like he has like the business mindset. He can see like how you like make money out of something or how you kind of organize it. Like Greg can often take, that can be quite chaotic, I think. And he can take this chaos and he can like structure it. He can like put it in an Excel spreadsheet, which I can't do. So we're shooting at like a million ideas and be like, what if we do this? What if we do that? And like, here's something. And he's like, okay, well, this is how we can do it. It was like timelines and like budgets. And I'm just like, oh, wow, it's crazy. Like I can't think in like Excel spreadsheets, but he really can.
To organize
so
chaos.
Yeah. And so then we decided to really take over campus. We got 10,000 Rand in 10 Rand notes. We had to save up because we were students, didn't really have like a hell of a lot, but we hustled and we saved up and we got 10,000 Rand and we got it in 10 Rand notes. I remember we went to the bank to get it. We had to like, we like, I mean, if you had 10,000 Rand in 10 Rand notes, it's like, it's kind of bizarre experience because not everything you do, I don't use a card, just, you just tap your phone, you're just like, boop, gone. And then later you look at your bank statements, you're like, oh my gosh, is this how much money I spend on like coffee and croissants? Like, but
Man, how thick must that stack must have been? Like
it
this thick.
like that. So it's like kind of like that. And so you're kind of walking out like
A whole brick.
Walking out to South Africa with like a pack of money. It's like, I mean, we were on Sea Point Main Road. And I was just like, wow, this is how I die. Like,
of all places.
We were at the FMB there because that's who we used to bank with. And I was just like, oh, man, this is rough. I had to call in ahead of time and get like special permission. And that was a hell of a thing. And
Yeah.
so you got that. And then we had stapled like little DigsConnect flyers saying, this is for you, UCT, or I don't know, some like funny phrase or something, or like send us digs pics or something like that. And then we had
Oh,
stapled
I love
a
that.
10 Rand note to a flyer. And then we had partnered with a few influencers on campus who we knew had like a really good following and were keen to work with us. Went to campus and just threw the money out in a crowd. There's a huge crowd of people, about I think like 4,000 people on the day. Like the photos of the day are nuts. It's actually chapter one of my book. So just to like plug my book quickly, if you buy Upstart at a retailer near you, it literally covers the story of how we did that. It was madness. If you Google it, you probably still see like the news articles about it and like the videos of
crazy.
it. And that kind of I think like launched us into like startup like law. I know they started that at like I think at Vega marketing class. They cover that as like guerrilla startup marketing, like one-on-one type stuff. So that kind of launched us, and we just got a lot of attention after that. It caught the attention of a lot of investors. And we weren't looking to raise, but they ended up actually closing a huge round. So it was 12 million Rand, and our company was only about a year old. And so for a start to raise 12 million Rand in 2018, it was like crazy. And yeah, I mean, we had the most fantastic investors come on board then who really, to this day, 6 years later, I can say, have been phenomenal. Stood with us through thick and thin, and there'd be some rough times. COVID was rough. When we last chatted, 2021 was really rough. I mean, like, since we actually last chatted in 2021, like everything changed. That's when, I can get into like the government stuff and our international expansion and the book deal came through. But like those investors were fantastic. They stuck with us through thick and thin. Because
wow. So I mean, in COVID, you must have like, how did you make money? There must have been virtually nothing coming in at that time, right? And the investors still stuck.
We did it.
I mean,
so we had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So our model, after we raised funding, we just grew and grew and grew. 2019 was amazing. I thought I was like going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg like a week later. And then, Cyril came on the radio and was like, by the way, I'm shutting the country down. There's this virus and like everyone's dying. And everyone's like, great. So yeah, that's what I hope you're going to say. That's wonderful news. And I remember like we kind of forgotten how hectic it was when it first came out. Like I remember I was on one of the last flights leaving Joburg for Cape Town because I'd been in Joburg at the time, and like normally the slow lounge, the slow lounge at Earl Tambo, that place is popping off. Like you go there and it's like it's like a Wednesday, like 11 a.m.
Where the party at?
Having jokes, like cooking. You can like power network. Like but when I was sitting there and Albie Sachs sitting next to me, I was just like, Albie Sachs, literally. And he's like, how's it? And I'm like, my bro, you wrote the Constitution. Like, I was like, can I get you a drink? Oh, I can't buy you a drink, but can I get you one? It's just conversations. But I was at the Earl Tambo Lounge and I was like, your people were bleak. It was scary. And this year, if I think of like my top 5 favorite places in the world, the Earl Tambo Slow Lounge is definitely on there. Like I've just always had the best interactions at that place. Like good things happen.
I need to get there. It's where it's happening, guys. This is where the real business interactions take place.
And do you know how you know it's good? Because I remember when I was flying and Marcus Euster had gone to at the airport and he like I think he got like rejected from the lounge or something, and I saw him sitting at the Wimpy and I was like, yo, my brah, it's cold outside. Hey, like enjoy your milkshake. The rest of us are going to be in the lounge. Like,
see you later. Oh man.
That's a bit of a.
You mentioned. I know when you were busy speaking, you did bring it up, and I really actually want to get into it. It's not about you plugging your book. It's about me and the audience actually wanting to understand what we're trying to achieve here. So let's get into that. What actually was your intention? Because as if you weren't doing enough, as if you weren't freaking founding this thing and being in parliament and everything, you were like, you know what? Now's a good time to also release a book. So you must have had a really important intention behind it. And there must have been a journey towards it. What's that been like? And what's the outcome of it? Like, what are you hoping that people actually gain from reading this book, Upstart?
I forgot about the Parliament thing, actually. That didn't remind me. That's
You
really
keep
good.
avoiding this topic. I'm like, you're just casually brushing over the fact that you're sitting in Parliament, throwing peace signs. You're busy taking selfies with Cyril, and you're just like, yeah. I'm skating around. Come on, let's get into it.
One time there was that State of the Nation address, and I blew a kiss at the camera, and a friend of mine like screenshotted that. I was singing to Darling Pofu, and I blew a kiss at the camera during like Cyril's speech, and everyone was like, "What?" I was like, "I don't know." I panicked. Like the camera was on. We had to do something, you know.
Oh, classic. I love it.
The book. So,
The book.
oh God, the funny thing was 2021. So now COVID had hit, right? And we had a business model that would fail if we kept it going during COVID. Like the world had changed, we had to adjust fast. But of course, there's no money coming in. Things were hectic. To try like create a new business model and build a product around that was really hectic. But it was do or die. It was that or like call it quits in the business. And so we had to like adjust our business model to one that made sense. It was a huge gamble. It worked, luckily. And then it was just crazy from this absolute like staring into the abyss, things were over, to suddenly this new model, things were amazing. We started doubling every year after that. Then we got some international investment and we had to expand internationally to do hit all these global cities. And so we decided like London was going to be like our international headquarters between London and Cape Town. And so that happened. Then I got the call from the president that appointed me to the board of NYDM. And then, I'm not joking, about a week later, I got a call from NB Publishers saying they wanted to offer me a book deal to write about the startup. And I think I'm like a delusionally optimistic person. So I was like, yeah, I can do all this. I'm a pretty sprightly individual. Like, I can manage it. Did I manage it? I don't know. Have I been managing it? I don't know. It's been intense.
It looks like it.
It's been bloody intense. Yeah, like you just have to unlock a new level, I think, of just like operating. I mean, like, God, I remember like I travel a lot for work, and I remember being on flights like, gosh, so many. I mean, 1 week I was in like 4 different countries, so it was just mad. And you have to just go, you have to like, I have my laptop out just like I was going, and sometimes you'd be like zipping across town in like an Uber, laptop, or like on your way to a meeting, laptop's another meeting. You have like a to-do list like next to you, things to like take notes on. Plus, you've got like the back of your mind, you got like these things to do. And then you can go from also the context switching from like startup work. And that can be anything from like product roadmaps to working on like financial stuff to doing team feedback sessions, and then you have to like context switch, like, okay, now I have to get really creative and write. I think the helpful thing with the book is I was writing about what I was doing. And so I love journaling and just writing in journals. So I have a blog called The Aviation Club, because I love flying planes. It's a bit of a hobby of mine. And the whole idea of aviation is like this concept of like human progress and human greatness, and the fact that like a couple thousand years ago, humans were like, midway through the food chain, being like munched on by predators and like dying from toothache, to go to the moon, and launching rockets to Mars. And that's exceptional. And I just get so angry when people get so negative and pessimistic, and they're like, "Oh, everything's so bad. Wine." I'm like, my bruh, at any point in the past, you have had like a 5,000% worse life as with everyone else. Yes, there are problems, and yes, we shouldn't negate perhaps the good points about perhaps our past life. I was maybe a bit calmer, but on the whole, like life has been and is getting exceptionally good. Just the fact there's modern medicine available, the fact you got a headache, you can just go to get a Panado and start that. I know it's not the case for everyone, and then our work is cut out for us to make sure that it is the case for everyone, but for a lot more people, a percentage of people, than at any point in the past. So the deal of the Aviation Club is about like human progress, how amazing that is. And that ties back into the book. But I was writing with stuff I was doing every single day. So while I was in the thick of it, so it's kind of like a live thing. Plus I could pull from my blog, which I've been writing every day, geez, for like years. And kind of also share this as I was like, the same mindset of being like, this is exceptional, but also like very much rooted and grounded in a South African story. Again, this idea that like what a country's done. Again, people are so negative and pessimistic, and just like blows my mind, like how like the perception that people are choosing to see the world through, like complaining about South Africa. Like 30 years ago, You know, our country was like living under like the most repressive like regime. Like most South Africans
Absolutely.
do not have basic human rights. And the fact we went
Yeah.
from that to a state where like one of the most progressive constitutions, where we enshrine like the freedom and equality of like all citizens. And we did it without
Mm.
a civil war, without like massive bloodshed. You look right now, all like the conflicts happening around the world. Like people, that is like the fact that like after even like hundreds or thousands of years, most people in most countries can't reach a resolution, can't hit peace. You know, they're just bombing each other or like shooting each other, doing like the
Yeah.
egos and the stupidity of most global leaders. But in South Africa, we managed to do it. We had an entire transition of governance without a civil war, without like, you know, massive bloodshed. That is exceptional. That is like
It is.
extraordinarily good work. And people just brush that off and complain and be like, oh, what about this? And I'm like, well, what are you doing about it then? You're sitting there
Mm.
whining, you know, at your bra about things aren't what you want. What are you doing?
Are you
You know,
writing a book
and if
about it?
exactly. I also don't need preachy because right now I feel like I'm getting preachy and that's like the worst. You're not going to change someone's mind by saying like, what are you doing about it? You do it
You
by
have all
inspiring.
the permission to be preachy. It's your podcast. So literally we want to hear right now. I want to
You know what?
know, I want to know what is the key thing that you really wanted to come out of this book for everybody.
What,
What's the key
what
takeaway?
not to be preachy, to be more inspired, you know, and to try and like convince people that like life is worth trying really hard in. The future's worth fighting for, you know, South Africa's worth fighting for. Startups are worth building. Taking risk is worth it. You know, that it
Mhm.
also can be fun. It can be a laugh. It can be a good time. It's a bit chaotic, but that's like that's the beauty of it. So I think I
Yeah.
want to do write that's inspiring, and I think you inspire people by creating joy, actually, not by being like rah, 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 which I can definitely do sometimes. So I want to write a book that was fun and inspiring and filled with good news stories and a kind of a bit of like this is how I did it. So not being
Mm.
prescriptive, but rather being like this is how I did it.
Mm.
And I want to do like an addendum to it, just like maybe resources that I've used over the years, like books I really like, or just other general resources, and like with like maybe like a rough roadmap. So books about that. It's kind of like my story, it's a South African story, it's a startup story. Um, it's a really fun story. Yeah, so that's Upstart, and I got it the book deal in
Mm.
early 2022. I tried to write it in a year, but it was hectic with everything. So it was published on Feb 29th. I thought it was a very auspicious date. This year.
What's maybe your favorite part? I'm sure there's maybe like a little section in the book or something that you're like, man, I wrote that and I want people to know this little section here, right there.
Oh gosh. A lot of it was cut out actually. My publisher, because I can really be, as you can tell from this podcast, I can talk a lot.
Flamboyant, perhaps?
Eccentric.
Oh.
Um, so a lot was cut out by my publisher actually. I've got like, I think I wrote maybe like 140,000 words, and the book ended up on
Wow.
70,000. So a lot
Wow.
was cut out of it. Um, I think
Sure. So
the
you were
one
just churning it out. It was just coming out of your fingertips.
that was kind of
Must have
how I
been.
do everything. I just like it was very unstructured. My editor and publisher, Melinda Ferguson, is incredible. Like I had just gone like I always do, I'd sit down and just having this absolute like tsunami of energy and ideas and thoughts. And I just like would like type like crazy and be like, here's everything. And then she would take this like chaotic document and be like, okay, you know, let's get to work on it. Cross out like huge sections of it. Maybe like your grammar's horrific here. Like this is not right. This is not how you spell that word. Um, and then kind of fashion it into like a thing that made sense. So
Mm.
she really has like, she did a lot more work, I'd say, than most editors do because, like I said, she cut out half the stuff that I wrote because there was just so much. The story I think I like a lot. There's a lot of like small stories in it, but I really like the story of when I climbed Kilimanjaro because it wasn't what I'd expected. Um, the journey was pretty intense. I got really sick at one point. And I don't want to ruin the story for everyone. But
Ooh, spoiler alert.
yeah, wait. But the Kilimanjaro story is quite close to my heart. I like climbing like big mountains and being in nature a lot. And since I've done like a lot of big like treks and trips into like the wilderness. But that one, I was 21 at the time. That one was like that one's pretty profound. It's one of those moments where like something you live through, you're like, damn, son.
Man, I'm so there's too much content actually. It feels cruel that this podcast has to be a certain length, and I'm trying to now pull every single thing that I'm trying to ask you into one sort of final question that you can put together. And I think kind of how I want to say is really what comes across speaking to you and everything that you've done is just so much, yet you still have so much energy. And I think it's what comes across is that your character is actually quite fascinating. I mean, you're young, you're female, and yet you never ever once mentioned like your gender as a setback in everything that you've done. Let's first start there. What's noticeable is you kind of have this carefree, fun-loving type of way of going around things. Like I saw this thing that you said on LinkedIn when you said you made your business cards on Jägermeister bottles so that people literally couldn't say no. So you literally could just go. So basically what you do is you go to these high level business and governmental spheres with this confidence and laid backness, you know, pulling a little kiss face on national television in parliament. But this is this is Alexandria in your fullness and your amazingness. And I'm thinking about, the young people out there who are watching this and they're feeling inspired and they're like, whoa, she's done so much. But I mean, that's Alexandria. What about me? How do I actually, how do I do this? How do I do this similar thing, but just with me being me? What would your advice be for those kind of people watching who have this great idea? They want to solve an issue in Africa on the continent, and yet they're like, I don't even know where to begin. I don't have this type of confidence, this type of energy. Where do I start?
I'd say the first thing to do is to read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, because it's like exceptional, which I think also answers part of your first question about why, being a woman, because I love being a woman and I love being, like femininity is so important to me. And I think you can always have your own brand or what it means to be feminine. I always just think I should sort of emulate masculinity to be strong. It's like I've just felt naturally drawn to doing things. I didn't try it. I didn't set out to be like a founder or the government work or, take like traditionally or masculine or like strong roles. It wasn't the plan. I just kind of did what I loved and I ended up here. And I don't, for a while I thought, to be good, I had to perhaps be more manly. Or like emulate that, but it's not my character, it's not. I love being just a girl.
The girl.
Yeah, exactly. And bringing that element in, I think being like unashamedly yourself and unashamedly authentic. And then, people might like you, they might not. I think I'm definitely like a divisive character sometimes. I love people who don't like me, and that's all right, But I think if you bring absolute authenticity, and if you authentically want good things to happen in the world, and if you authentically want to help people and do awesome stuff, and you've got a good character, then like that comes across. I think humans, we evolved with each other we're fundamentally a community-based species. We've evolved over thousands of years, and even if we can't maybe like not directly pick up someone's character or authenticness or truthfulness, like there's like a million tiny little like gestures or bits of body language that we can kind of pick up and recognize in a human being. And so I think being authentic and being maybe like a bit like not formal but informal settings, I think it works really well, because you're not trying to put on this like very awkward like situation which puts you on edge. As soon as you can just be human and real about wanting good things in the world, I think it actually just works. My opinion, works really well. Sometimes it backfires. I know some people find like maybe it's a bit too much, or they find like informal, or like I've been told a few times for how I dress. But yeah, I think one of the beautiful things about getting older is you kind of just like stop caring about a lot of stuff and you care what does matter, and you can decide what does matter to you. And for someone watching this thinking, oh gosh, how do I start? I think what's like, there's so much I want to say to this. I know sometimes like when you hear like, sometimes when you hear like success stories, whatever. And again, success is very much like an opinion. It's your choice what that is. For me, success could be fitness goals or family goals or financial goals or travel goals, whatever it is. You can tell what that is. But if you hear a success story within what you're going for, sometimes it can inspire you, but sometimes it can demoralize you, and you can be like, oh God, like how the hell do I God, it's like the Instagram model thing. You see like these like perfect like 10s on Instagram. You're like, I don't look like that. Like, oh my God, and that I find demoralizing. Then other times you find, content creators who are so real about like the work they do, and they're real about like within life, how do you work out, or how do you kind of do certain things to look your best, or feel your best. That's what's the important thing. And so I guess, it's people kind of wondering like, it's never like you never kind of, I don't know, it's what I think. I never knew where I was gonna. I kind of, I had like a big idea for what I wanted to do in the world and what I enjoy doing. And I kind of just followed that, I think. The important thing I think is not to compare yourself, because that can be, I think it can be like a ticket to misery in a way. And if you do start getting miserable, it's really hard to pull yourself out of that. If you do start feeling like, oh God, I'm not good enough, or I'm unworthy, or comparing myself to other people you don't know their story, you don't know what they went through, how much work they put into that, or you see the end result, not the work that went into it. So I think don't compare yourself. Don't get stuck into like a negative or like miserable mindset, because it's really hard to break out of that. It's easier to do good work. It's easier to believe in yourself when you feel good about yourself. So focusing on what makes you feel good about yourself and building yourself up, if it's like friends to build you up, or it's like doing sports or whatever it is. So you feel good and you're not comparing yourself, and you're building what your authentic, truthful vision is, in whatever realm that is. The greatest creators, I think, from anything, are always true to their vision. Obviously have to understand what the world needs and when you create value, but being true to your vision and your authenticity, I think is the most important thing. I think that's how you just do beautiful stuff in the world at whatever level it is. But continually most importantly, starting with a mindset that is positive and that's optimistic, and seeing the best in the world, and seeing the opportunities in the world, and seeing the hope in the world, and knowing the future's worth building towards, because then you want to get stuck in. So I think start with your mindset. Make sure that you are the person that you see positivity and gratitude, and in that it's really easy to be a good person when you feel good.
Clicks, clicks. Sorry, I had to for the Gen Zers out there.
Namaste.
Oh, man. Alexandria, wow, this was amazing. Amazing, amazing. I don't even think we even reached the tip of the iceberg of everything you're doing right now. But I know that we got a lot of who you are and your personality, and how you see the way that you go about. And I really hope that this has offered everybody watching a lot of inspiration. So congratulations for releasing your new book, Upstart. Guys, you can get it at Alexandria. Plug yourself, girl. It's your time. Exclusive book.
Any bookstore in South Africa. So I've got my publishers are great with distribution. It's on Takealot, it's on Amazon, also available internationally, exclusive books, Wordsworth books, bookstore near you. You can also find it, I've linked to it on my website, which is just alexandriaprocter.com. It's linked there. Yeah, but also any bookstore.
Cool. And then also you did mention that reports. I think I will also probably be able to link that resource to our audience as well, because it sounded really great. Most importantly, thank you everybody for listening. Keep challenging yourself, keep challenging the norm, and making business unusual. Until next time.